1996 Suzuki Wagon R Turbo. And it is one of the weirdest hatchbacks or vans or station wagons or miniature crossovers I have ever reviewed. Before I get started, be sure to check out cars and... No way. I don't have a car option. So, let's talk Wagon R. This is a K car, which is a small classification of Japanese mini cars designed to fit on dense streets and provide its owners in Japan with a taxable insurance rate. Suzuki Wagon R has also gone on to find success in places like Europe, where it was sold as the Opel Agila and the Wagon R Plus, which is a larger version, a slightly larger engine if you count 2 meters, a large engine. But it has made success in India as the Maruti Suzuki Wagon R, sold by Suzuki's Maruti sub-brand. And has gone on to become a wild success down there as well. I shall now take you on a thorough tour of the Suzuki Wagon R Turbo, show you all of its unique quirks and features, and then take it for a drive. And then I will give it a DOUGSCORE, because I am Douglas DeMuro. Totally. As you can see in sunny California. Yes! Alright, starting with the Wagon R is its general... Oh god, no! God damn it! This video's gonna suck! Alright, starting with the quirks and features of the Suzuki Wagon R is its general shape. Most K cars that have been reviewed on YouTube have mostly been crazy sports cars like the AutoZam AZ1, the Suzuki Cappuccino, Honda Beat, or various of those little mini trucks you may see on college campuses or farms. But this is a good example of what a regular K car is. Like, it's very boxy and very tall. Like, look at this. My hand has like a good few inches of travel between me and my head. This thing has insane headroom, despite K cars having a reputation of not being very tall people friendly. Quickly, before we cover the rest of the car's quirks and features, a quick stop in the front end of the interior. As you can see, the plastic and the dashboard insides are actually fairly high quality for a 25-year-old car and for what is basically an econo box in Japan. Even more so than the Japanese econo boxes we get here in the States. And since this is the higher end RV line, you get little RV Turbo stickers on the, stitching on the front seats that have a very 90s design. Another quirk of the interior is that it does actually have power windows. Except for the back, but we'll get to that later. The back seat has its own quirks and features. And some of these features up front include the fact that the driver's side window automatically rolls down, but the passenger side doesn't. Even some cars today don't even have auto roll down windows. Like, I know someone who owns a Volkswagen Golf TDI top of the line that doesn't even have full roll down windows for anything. So that's one thing this car has. And another quirk about this car is that when you shift into reverse, it makes this very strange beeping sound, like a truck, a big commercial truck. And that's a very common thing on a lot of Japanese cars because of just a very weird regulation and just a general Japanese quirk. Anyway, on to the back seat of the Wagon R. And sadly, there are no more bins under the front seats. But one of the other weird quirks about this car is it only has 3 doors. 2 doors on this side and 1 on the other. So it has 3 doors like Hyundai Veloster or older extended cab pickups, but instead of having a 3rd baby door, it has this full-size door. Other quirks and features about this is, unlike the front, the one window that can roll down in the back it's not powered. It has an old-fashioned crank window. And I will demonstrate that to you now. To prove my point that I'm not, full of crap. It's the closest thing DOUGSCORE's ever come to swearing. And anyway, other quirks and things about the back seat of this particular car are, it is actually pretty capable of seating 2 people in the back in somewhat close quarters. If you move the seats right, and if you have a short driver and passenger up front, you could easily seat 4 grown adults comfortably, which is because K cars, most of these, were built to maximize interior space in order to maximize the ability for them to fit into the regulations. Other quirks are the fact that the rear headrest on this particular car, on one of the back seats, was removed, presumably by the previous owner in Japan, because if you're sitting in the driver's seat and you're backing up, normally if the headrest was here, it would have blocked your view, but the previous owner in Japan got rid of it and didn't bother to throw it out. Good luck finding another replacement headrest for a 25-year-old K car that was relatively boring in its native land. But at least you still have sick 90s designed seats in the back, because 90s cars just have really weird designs on the seats, front and back. 90s. Very 90s. And now, on to the rear portion of the Wagon R. Nothing really much to say back here other than the trunk carpeting, the little piece of cardboard over the trunk carpeting here is disintegrating. But also, a detriment to this vehicle's practicality is the back seats don't really fold. They do fold, but they don't fold all the way forward, as you can see. So loading larger items in here may be harder unless you adjust the front seats, but such is the compromise when you drive a Wagon R. Alright, and anyways, onto this side of the car for a brief moment. I was not kidding, it only has 3 doors, and if you may have noticed, it has this big sporty stripe right in the length of the car that says Intercooler Turbo. Like I said, this is the turbo model with a functional intercooler. We will get to that in due time, but there are more quirks and features of the Wagon R that I must show you. And I must get the phone camera really quick before a car drives by and ruins my entire shot. Now, before we get on to the rest of the car's quirks and features, I would like to show you a little snippet of the owner's manual, if I can get to it, in the second underseat bin in this car. And it says, Suzuki Wagon R, caring for customers. It has some very funny things in it, even though I can't read it since it's all in Japanese. Some of the funny illustrations here include various incidents in the car going wrong, such as the radiator exploding or the car hitting something, and it says, no! Or it says, brow, bro! Along with other things, including a driver and passenger wearing seatbelts saying, okay, and, oh yes, or something like that. And surprisingly, these people, they look like cartoon characters you'd see in a Saturday morning cartoon or a newspaper comic strip. So it's very odd to see such a Western-looking drawing in a Japanese car. It is very, very odd and very, very quirky, just the way I like it. And anyways, now for the big reveal of the Suzuki Wagon R's engine. We'll put latch just under the Suzuki out. And here it is, a 660cc turbocharged inline 3-cylinder with a functional intercooler and hood scoop, making only 63 horsepower and a similar roundabout number of pound-feet of torque, because that is the maximum allowed by K-car regulations. And just look at how crammed together everything is. The engine block is like the size of like half the size of a laptop. The battery looks like something that would be going a lawnmower. And you can barely even see the turbocharger because the inlet manifold is right on top of it, along with ducting for the intercooler and airbox. among other things. Now, that all of the quirks and features of the Suzuki Wagon R RV Turbo and its 3 or 4 door glory, if you count this as a hatchback. And now, I'm gonna go take it for a drive. It's probably a good thing because I shouldn't be filming right now in this windy ass weather. All right, driving the Suzuki Wagon R Turbo. And honestly, it drives pretty well, like any other car, except it's very small, which obviously makes parking very, very different because it's a teeny, weeny little car. And the reason why it's tiny, it also has a no airbag, so if the guy behind me accidentally rear ends me, I'm dead. So anyway, it's very zippy, very fun, very analog, because you know it's an old car from the 90s. It's very zippy. Since there's a guy behind me and I don't want to make my camera fall over, I can't really fully give it the beans right now, but what I can say is, if you are in the market for a car like this, and don't want your phone to slide around, invest in a camera too. He passed me. He passed me because I was going too slow. Driving like a granny here, because, anyways, back on track. The Wagon R is for the person who wants Lamborghini levels of attention without Lamborghini level prices. Going through a short corner. Whoa! Without Lamborghini level prices, or Lamborghini levels of maintenance. Well, that might not be the case, since getting spare parts from Japan would be a hassle. Oh god. Oh. Hey, this is a better filming experience than Doug DeMuro. Anyway, you know, the camera moves around when I drive. So anyway, I'm gonna give it the full beans now. Whoa! Wow! Huh! Oof. That was a pull up to around 60 kilometers an hour, which is around 45 miles per hour. And believe me, this car is fun. I've gotten it up to its top speed of around 75, 80-ish miles an hour. And I bet I could get it higher if I could remove the speed limiter that is usually put on K cars because of, I don't know, something to do with Japanese government regulations. And surprisingly, this car doesn't have a dinger. A lot of Japanese cars have a little dinger in them when you go over 100 kilometers per hour or 60 miles an hour, which would be a hassle on our highways, but luckily, I don't take this thing on the highway. I only drive around to my job and to my school. Because I am a teenager. Oh wait, no, I am not a teenager. I drive it to do Doug DeMuro things. Because I am Doug DeMuro. How could you not tell? Clean shaven, neat hair, wearing casual clothes, you know. Because Doug DeMuro. Well, okay, big sharp corner, big hairpin right here. Whoa! Ah, damn it! God damn it! Ah! My phone! My damn phone! Okay. Anyway, if you're in the market for a car like this, they're very cheap to import yourself, but me, I got it from a fine import dealer in my local area, the only one in fact. Speaking of only ones, if you buy something like this, you'll likely be the only Wagon R driver in your entire state, your entire county. I'm telling you now, because they are very rare, because not a lot of people bother to import such a quirky car such as this one. And from my calculations, there are only about 15 Wagon R drivers in the entire United States. So it is a very interesting car, because I get a lot of comment for the United States, ironically, very interesting, because ironically in other countries, such as places like Europe and especially India and Indonesia, I get a lot of comments from people online saying it's a boring car, a pensioner's car even, especially in Europe. Granted, I'm driving like a pensioner now to not mess up my camera footage, but you get the point. It is a very boring car elsewhere, but is extremely exotic here, like many Japanese cars. Oh, narrow. Very scary, trying to film myself while driving. God damn it. But anyways, as I was saying before that minor bump messed up my camera, I am very pleased with this car. I enjoy it, really, I do. But yes, anyway, that is the Suzuki Wagon R. You should look, if you can find one for sale, either on a Japanese car import website, or if you want to, or if you can find an import dealer that has imported one, then be my guest and go get one if you have a second car, or even if you're brave enough to daily drive one. Look into it. It's very cool. And so that was the Suzuki Wagon R Turbo. And now I'm going to give the Suzuki Wagon R RV Turbo a Doug score, because I am totally done filming on a Doug DeMuro budget, and definitely did not use a milk crate and a folding table covered in dirt and various rocks I found on the ground to prop up my iPhone 13 as a camera. Starting with the weekend categories and styling, the Wagon R is very boxy, very cutesy, little cute face on the front end, and it gets a 6 out of 10. Acceleration is zippy, but albeit very slow, and it gets a 1 out of 10. Handling is go-kart-like, insanely go-kart-like. It's almost like, especially because this car is extremely light, 500 pounds lighter than a Mazda Miata. And it gets a 7 out of 10. Fun factor is pretty good for a small car with not a lot of power and very tall, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Cool factor is immense. This is, very few people import these because they go for the crazy cars like the Skylines or the Supras or the RX-7s or the K-Trucks or the AutoZams or what have you. And it gets a 9 out of 10. Many people look at this car, many will look at you, and you may get basically the same attention as someone driving a Lamborghini. Albeit with the question of what do you do for a living is replaced with what the heck is that? Next up are the daily categories, starting with features, and this car is very archaic for its time because it's from 1996. It doesn't even have a working radio, but it has a serviceable climate control system and such, and so it gets a 3 out of 10. Comfort is okay, actually, for what it is, although you do sometimes hear a lot of wind noise, and you may feel a lot more pain when going over bumps or potholes and such, and it gets a 4 out of 10. Quality is actually pretty good. Most of this car's materials have held up very well on the inside, and the powertrain seems pretty rock solid, but performance parts or replacement parts or otherwise is a valid concern, and it gets a 6 out of 10. Practicality is surprisingly alright for a little K car that is extremely small. But the seats don't fully fold down, but you can carry a good amount of things, just groceries, or even, since this thing has a roof rack, put a shell on it and take it on a road trip if you're brave enough to take this car to a maximum speed of 65 miles an hour. And it gets a 7 out of 10. Finally, value. And this car's value is surprisingly affordable for what it is, as a weird, quirky car that'll get you tons and tons of looks at the Cars and Coffee. I got mine for $6,000. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention I got this thing. And it gets a 8 out of 10. Added up, and the Doug score is 59 out of 100, which places it up against freaking nothing. I wasn't Doug DeMuro. It was me, Casey Dita, the whole time. Wow. But anyways, the Wagon R is a very interesting and quirky K car for what it is. And it's very, very cool because I love it. I love my little Suzuki. I'm gonna have a blooper reel the size of Montana.